So the other day, I was here in my neighborhood and I came across a grandmother and her granddaughter. They were outside walking around, but the grandmother was on the phone and she seemed to be having an uncomfortable conversation concerning the granddaughter. And in between her speaking to the person on the phone and then trying to relay or convey something to the granddaughter was just walking around sort of in, a serpentine motion, um, whining and being and demanding certain things. And her sentences began with, I don't want to, I don't care, those sorts of things in a high pitched voice, um, with a disturbed demeanor. And she wasn't four. She was at the most 10, maybe she's 8, somewhere in there. And the grandmother looked exasperated. And at one point, we caught each other's eyes, and she gave me that look that says, I don't know how I got here. I don't know how I got here. How have we come to this? And now I don't know the nature of what was going on. I don't know the why behind the what. I do get the sense though that the way that little girl was behaving was not new. It was a way that she had behaved before, um, and whatever the grandmother tried to address it that may have worked other times was not working this time. And now we're outside having this issue because part of the issue was she wasn't going back inside for whatever reason. Um, Therefore, I come across them outside having the issue. And it occurred to me when I thought about how the grandmother looked at me, it occurred to me that part of what she was thinking was I didn't have this kind of issue with my kids when they were little. Like this is foreign to me. She was exasperated. And then I started thinking, wow, how did her granddaughter get there? And I started thinking about, my own life and my own journey to what I call intentional, or we can call it thoughtful parenting, um, where I had experiences as a child that I thought didn't serve me well. Even as a child, I realized this is not serving me well. And when I become a mother, I'm going to approach this thing differently and therefore put thought into what that would look like. And I assumed that maybe this woman's daughter had done the same. Whatever her and her husband had experienced in their upbringings brought them to a place where they were like, we're going to do something different. And maybe what they're doing is gentle parenting. Because I tell you what I saw, the grandmother's hands were tied. She seemed to be saying the same thing over and over because she felt like there was nothing else she could say. She felt like she had no other cards to play in the situation. She felt like her hands were tied. And this little girl seemed like she was running this show. And I thought about gentle parenting and I thought about how common it is. And if this is a situation that brought this on, I thought we'd talk about it today because I get it. I get it. I get the idea that what you experienced was so harsh, was so cruel, maybe, or just was so unpleasant. There's degrees to things that you have decided, you know what? No, I got to do this a different way. It doesn't need to be this way. There has to be another way. I get it. What I'm wondering about is how we get to what that way is. When I looked up gentle parenting, because I had to look it up, because I'm like, what? I doesn't want to be talking about stuff and not know what I'm talking about. That's not befitting of a doctor of any kind. And so I looked it up, and I'm reading it, and overall, it's it's parenting. You know, you want to recognize that your child is a human being, that they are um, precious and have value, and they are growing up to be individuals that need to see themselves as valuable in the way that they engage others, in the way they conduct themselves in the world scene. So I get it that you're wanting to foster that value early on in the way that you speak to them. When possible, you want to avoid yelling. You want to speak to them in a tone that's conducive to them actually listening. I get it. You want to avoid punishment. The issue I have no problem with avoiding punishment because punishment is not correction. So I think we need some definitions. Discipline is not correction, and correction is not punishment. Discipline is what you do, because I saw it said gentle parenting is about setting consistent rules and boundaries. That's parenting. That's parenting, period. That's life. That's life and relationships, period. All relationships have certain rules of engagement and then boundaries that go with that. Um, Obviously, in the parent-child dynamic, those are going to be different and a little more stringent because of the nature of the thing. And I think people are not getting the nature of the thing, but we'll get to that in a minute. So, discipline is what a child needs in order to be able to honor those rules and boundaries. You need to discipline yourself to recognize mom said I could have one cookie after school. You need discipline to only have one cookie. If you are undisciplined, then you have as many cookies as you want, right? And that's that. That's discipline. Correction is what happens when you don't display discipline. So when mom comes home, and you come home and you find out your child had 5 cookies and you said they could only have one cookie, then now there should be correction for the fact that you didn't display the discipline that I have taught you that you need to have on this issue. Now, apparently, gentle parenting says we need to be concerned about the why behind why they had 5 cookies instead of the correction for them having 5 cookies. I That sounds like pendulum parenting to me because that sounds like this either or thing where we don't like this, so we just come all the way over here and do this. And I talked about that before in another video. And the problem with that is life is a lot of ands. It it's a not either ors all the time. It's a lot of and. So really, you should find out why they took 5 cookies. You know why? Because whatever they believed that led them to take is why they took 5 cookies. They believed something. Maybe they believed, mom's being extra. 5 cookies, the more the merrier. How can 5 cookies hurt? I like the cookies, so let me get 5 cookies. And I'm sure there's nothing that's going to be harmful to me if I have 5 cookies. So your child believed something that then led to the behavior. So it's good to find out, what were you thinking? What were you feeling? Did you have a particularly bad day? And you felt 5 cookies was going to help you feel better because emotional eating is a thing. Okay. All right. So let's find out why. The why behind the what. We should find out. That's part of parenting. That's part of helping your child learn self-awareness, which is key to being someone who is disciplined. It's key to being someone who can recognize and own their mess ups. It's key, self awareness is key to someone being able to express what they want in their relationship dynamics. We need self awareness. And so, helping your child give words to why they did a thing is essential and is an excellent part of parenting. It's the instead of for me. It's the we're not going to correct it because we understand, right? So, so let's say the child thought, you know, five cookies, one cookie, it's all good. What's the big deal? Um, the big deal is that I am raising my child to live in the world. They're not just living in my house. At some point, they're going to grow up and live in the world and be a citizen of the world, living in their own home, navigating their own uh, paths day in and day out. And they need to recognize and honor boundaries. And oftentimes, those boundaries are not considerate of. If you think you should be able to have five as much as you should be able to have one, the boundary has been given, the rule has been given, and if you want to participate or you want to be a part of this thing, that's the rule. And so you have to be able to tell yourself, you have to have the discipline to say, okay, I would love to have five cookies. And really, I don't see the big deal in having five cookies. But here in this situation, I can only have one. And so that's what I'm going to do. Because here's the thing all decisions and actions have consequences. You never get to pick the consequence. Your opportunity and your child's opportunity is to make the decision. So that's what you're teaching them to do, is to make informed decisions. Now, there may come a time that that person, that your child is growing, they're like, I want five cookies. And I'm prepared to deal with the consequence that comes with me taking five when I was told to only take one. That's informed. They have understood that there's a consequence and they have chosen it. That needs to be a concept they understand at home. That should not be a concept they go out into the world to understand, because life is not gentle. In this world, here's a promise that I can make to you. And if you think about it, you know it's true. In this world, you will have trouble. In this world, your child will have trouble. They will have trouble. Life is not gentle. Life does not ask you how you feel about all the things. There will be people in your life who may care how you feel. They are your friends. They are your family. They are the ones who want to know you beyond what you do. And I colored in this line and I followed this rule. They want to know who you are. And so they want to know how you feel. And they take that into account. It's why they give you grace when you cross their boundary, because you talk about it and they find out why you did what you did. And then they can have compassion and empathy for that. And so they say, okay, but that's not how life is as a blanket statement. Life brings with it times of trouble. And as parents, we are preparing our children for life. We are not preparing them according to our own feelings, our own sentiments. We're not supposed to prepare them just to relate to us. We are preparing them to enter into society and be positively contributing members. So let me clean up and go back, because I said I was going to explain the difference between discipline, correction, and punishment. So correction is what happens to deal with the fact that you were undisciplined. And you know it's correction because correction actually relates to the thing. So I said you could have one cookie. You told your child they could have one cookie. They had five. So now the correction is We talk about, we want to correct their thinking, right? Why did you take the five? Well, I thought, what's the big deal? Five, whether, well, the big deal is that we're going to have dinner here shortly. And when you have five cookies that have no nutritional value, really, now you don't have room for the dinner that is nutritional. And so that's why I told you one, because I wanted you to have a treat, but I didn't want the treat to interfere with your dinner. Now, mind you,
Hey there, I appreciate you making it this far in the video. I don't take it lightly. I know how many videos you might have seen or other pieces of content you've already enjoyed today. And so I know what I'm talking about here is meaty and it's lengthy. And hey, if you have babies you need to go take care of, if you have an errand you need to run, if you have some work you need to get done, I totally understand you taking a break and coming back and finishing at another time. I will be here. And yeah, just you know what to do. Go back in your history and just pick up where you've left off. And I'll be here with more. So thanks again. And I hope you're having an amazing day.
that conversation you can only have with a child of a certain age. So this idea that I can just like gently and woman to woman talk to a child doesn't make any sense, because at certain ages that child can't even comprehend what we're talking about, and they're not interested. All they know is they wanted five cookies. The crumbs and the chocolate is still all over their mouth. They just wanted five cookies. And so with that child, and with any child, you jump to the part where you say, okay, so now you can't have any more cookies this week. Why can't I have any more cookies? Because when I told you you could have one, you went and had five. And it's very important that when mommy tells you something, that you honor what mommy says, because mommy's concerned about your well-being. And the things I tell you for your own good. You know, you have the whole conversation, but there has to be correction, or else you're depending on reason to convince a child to do something different. Reason doesn't convince grown people. There are adults who are unreasonable. And so you can't rely on simply explaining it to them and them agreeing. There has to be a rule and a boundary. And if you have a rule and a boundary that you don't enforce, then why do you have a rule and a boundary? There's no point in setting consistent rules and boundaries if they can cross the boundary and there be no consequence. That is not life. You can ask anybody in prison. They have crossed all type of boundaries, and they had reason. Nobody is out here doing stuff willy-nilly. They have reasons. They felt a way. They had feelings. I understand. We can discuss that, but you still crossed a boundary. That comes with this consequence. Now, here's the difference with punishment. Because prison is really punishment. Okay? The difference between punishment and correction is punishment is just for pain. It has no corrective value. It does not correct your thinking about the thing that had you do what you did. It just is punishment. It's just painful. It's just to cause you pain in some way, physically or emotionally, because you're cut off now from the people that you love. It is just for pain. It does not address the why behind the what. And it's not commensurate even to what what you did. Okay? It's not um you stole uh, we've caught you stealing multiple times from the store, or you stole X number of dollars in property. And so your correction will be that you have to work to earn the money to pay back. That's correction. Punishment is you you just gonna get locked up, and you're going to get locked up. You're not going to have any. Nobody's going to come and talk to you about, um, why were you in this position where you felt like you had to steal all this stuff to make this money, and so let's get you some skills so that you can. No, we just lock you up. So punishment is not ideal, and I don't promote that. Correction necessary. This you have to get, yes, talk to them about the why and correct that. Correct their misconception. Because that when you correct the thought, then you address the behavior will correct itself when you correct the thought. But for the behavior that they already did, there has to be a consequence, or else there is no reason why they will consider this conversation any further and consider their behavior any further. If they just know that I can do this and my mom will just sit and talk with me about it, and then we'll go on as if nothing happened. That's not life. And so I make this video because I'm afraid that this gentle parenting is really code word for cowardice. It's, and I don't mean it to offend you. I mean, there's things that you have experienced and that have been very difficult for you. And instead of doing the work to face them, to process them, to take the lessons from them, to let it inform you on how to become a better version of what you experienced, you put them to the side, you covered your eyes and just act like that didn't happen, and instead decided that I'm really just going to um, let my child just do what they do, flow how they flow, and intervene as little as possible because I don't want to do anything like what happened to me. And I understand your timidity. I understand your apprehension. I understand um, the overwhelm. Sometimes it's overwhelming when you think about what you experienced in childhood and you can remember how you felt in those moments and how it affected you. And if you have any awareness at all to connect the dots between what happened then and how it affects you today, if you even thought about it that much, I understand why you're like, at all costs, I don't want to come anywhere near to the kind of parent that I experienced. The the problem is that this child that you have is going to grow up, and they're going to go into the world, and they have to be prepared for it, and that's your job. Your job is to prepare them for it, not prepare them according to your comfort. Because here's the thing: this gentle parenting, that name is just like, it just really bothers me because there's nothing gentle about parenting or childhood. It's a misnomer. There's nothing gentle about it. There's nothing gentle about life. There's nothing gentle about parenting. There's nothing gentle about being a child. Your child goes through several stages, just like you did. And if you even just think about puberty, there's nothing gentle about it. You went to bed one day smelling like a rose, and the next day, for a time after that, you stink. You never needed deodorant. You need all type of deodorant, and then you got to keep figuring out which deodorant you need because not every deodorant works for everybody. And your mother told you you need to put on deodorant. And if you, some girls, some boys, like, I don't know, I don't need deodorant. It's not that serious until you go to school and somebody tells you that you stink, and then you get bullied, and then you realize, oh my gosh, I do need deodorant. Life is not gentle. Childhood is not gentle. The changes in your body are aggressive. The changes in your hormones, right? Your physical state, your hormones. You you can't figure out why you're thinking the way you're thinking, why you're behaving the way you're behaving, the actions that you're taking, the thoughts that are occurring to you, why these words are coming out your mouth. It's all very sudden. And it can feel violent. Then you get older, and if you have, like I have in my house, I have one of those uh, you know, digital picture frames, and the pictures are just going that I've put on there. And every once in a while, my kids will look at a picture of them when they're younger, and they'll say, "Wow, things were so much simpler then. I remember that. I remember how I was at that age, and all I had to think about was blah blah blah." And then they'll stop, and then I'll say, "Yeah, it's different now, huh? Yeah, now I got to deal with this. I got to deal with that. I got to consider this. I got to consider that." That's not gentle. That's not gentle. They're realizing, wow, I'm as I am moving through these stages, life is getting more and more complicated. There's more and more things I have to consider, and there's more and more discipline required of me because I have more things to be responsible for. And so, yes, we need to parent in a way that that honors the fact that this is a child of God. God made this person. He's entrusted them to me for a season to help bring them up, help prepare them to go into life and to walk out the purpose that He has for them. And it's hard work. Parenting is not gentle for you. Nobody said it was going to be gentle. You were minding your business. You single, then you got married. If you're married, having children, maybe you're a single mother. But anyway, you were minding your business until you became a mother. And then here are these people. This child is okay. First, it's cute. It's minimal. You're tired, but okay. They just want to be. It's only a few things wrong. They're wet. The diaper's dirty. They want something to eat. They're tired. It's just a few things that are wrong. I can figure that out. Okay. Then as it gets complicated. There are lots of things to consider. This child has come with a whole will, a whole temperament package, a whole set of personality traits that some you relate to, some you do not. And you have to figure out how to communicate with and connect with this child, how to find some kind of common ground where you can connect on. It's nothing gentle about it. There's nothing hands off about it. It's nothing, this idea that you can kind of just step back and just see how it goes and it'll just come together. That is not reality. It's not reality. And what you have, particularly when you have your mother raising your children, now you done roped her into this. You got her outside in the street, walking around behind a child who's telling her what she's not gonna do and she don't care and did at the top of her lungs, whining and carrying on, and you're walking behind her, wanting the ground to open up and swallow you up because her mother is somewhere, maybe on the other end of this phone, and also has nothing to say that is helpful in this situation. You you're not doing anyone a service. You have to do your work. You have to face the things that you experienced in childhood. I've talked about my stuff before on other videos. I had to face growing up in a blended family. I had to face uh, being raised by a mother who did not want me, but what I was sort of a means to an end for her. Um, who resented me for being close to my dad because she has issues of her own regarding fathers. I mean, yeah, it's complicated. And I had to deal with that. I had to digest and process how that all affected me. I had to, because I also wanted to be a mom. And what happens in your childhood affects your motherhood. It absolutely does. You can't just cover your eyes and cover your ears and go, no, 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 I don't hear it. It's there. It happened. And you have to address it. You cannot hide from it. And you cannot hide from being a parent. It's tough stuff. It's tough stuff. Um, this child you're raising is not your equal. They are equal in value. Absolutely. They are not your equal in terms of intellect. They're not your equal in terms of experience. They're not your equal. So you cannot have a linear, straight up, you get what I'm saying conversation with that child, because they don't. They don't. They don't understand the scope of all of this. They don't understand the magnitude of decisions and consequences. And that's part of what you teach them. You teach them on a smaller scale. You teach them in a loving environment, because out there, it ain't loving. It's life. And life is not gentle. In this life, they will have trouble. And woe unto them if they were not taught by someone who loved them. They were not prepared by someone who loved them. And they were just coddled and gentle, and you can have it your way, and I'll just listen to what you think about it, and I won't say anything, and I'll just agree with you, and everything's fine. Don't worry about the glass you broke. Don't worry about that you keep breaking that glass. Don't worry about that you keep breaking. Just we'll just because I understand how you feel. That's not preparing them for life. You gotta do your work. You gotta do your work. It takes courage to be a parent. It takes courage know um, to know better for your child. I don't know, to want better for them, and them not to have a clue what better is, and to just settle for less, and um, less is a life that is selfish, a life that revolves around them, because this world will not revolve around them. So you're setting them up for disaster, and you love them too much for that. And so at some point, you have to stop passing the buck on other people, stop wanting other people to raise your child because you don't have the courage to. And the reason you don't have the courage to is because you haven't had the courage to face your pain from your childhood. You got to face it. You got to face it. There's so many helps now. There's therapy. There's books. There's all kind of things. There's a podcast, by the way, Motherhood Unmasked. You should check it out. But I did the podcast to encourage moms because I know it's hard. It's thankless. And you go a long time without knowing if what you're doing is working, if it's even right. But doing nothing doesn't work. And it's years before you see the fruit of your labor. And so everybody needs a little encouragement. And that's what the podcast was about. And it has been a blessing to many. But look here, my podcast, somebody else's podcast, it really doesn't matter. What matters is take the time to really think about what you're doing here as a mother. What are you doing? What is your goal? Um, if you're thinking, I'm just trying to get out of this, I'm just trying to get through it. And mm-mm. That child is your child your whole life. And what you sow now, you will reap the benefits or the pain of later. You'll either reap the benefits or you reap the burdens of it later. I think you got to think about that. And there's no such thing as coasting through parenthood. There's no such thing as coasting through childhood. It's all messy. People are messy, but you love your child. And so, by all means, be thoughtful. Think about what you experienced and what you want to avoid, what you don't want to repeat, what you would like to do instead. Think about how that would benefit your child ultimately, right? And if you can think it through and think long term, think of the impact, because that's what parents do, because that's what adults do that children cannot. They don't think long term. So you can't put a whole lot of stock in what they want because they know what they want this minute. They don't know how what they want will either bless them or be a problem for them in the future. That's where you come in. You give them context. So I hope that helps. I hope that encourages you um, to be a thoughtful parent. Sometimes your approach will be gentle, and sometimes it won't. But you do what you do in love. You do what you do with love, even when you have to be strong about it. You do what you do with love, and that's what matters. That's what they remember because it's cold out here in the world. And they'll remember your love. They'll remember that because you love them, you prepared them. They can brace the cold because they were built for it. You did your part. So I encourage you to remember when it comes to you being the mother of your children, girl, you are the woman for the job. You. So go ahead and be your child's mother and all that that requires. Do it with great thoughtfulness and with great love, with great intention and correction where need be. Okay? Take care.